Anyway, today our topic is diet and nutrition. And I actually had as close to a panic attack as I can have, because I don't do panic attacks, when I thought, what have I gotten myself into? As I go through this today, I've really had to come down to some nitty gritty. I think that if you're just starting out and kind of don't know where to go, this is a good place to start. If you've sidestepped and need some encouragement to get back on track, so to speak, or just a refresher and a reminder. So diet is something that is going to grow and evolve with you for the rest of your life. So this is a good place to start, okay? From the information that you guys have given me, I see that it seems that everybody has already started to make some shifts. That is awesome. And Teresa Bias, if you are on here, you just blew my mind. I just literally 2 minutes ago looked at all those beautiful pictures, and that's a great idea. Let's share beautiful food pictures. I've got one of a pot of soup that I'm going to share when we're done here. Okay, so I want you to think about food as the single most important thing. Food is definitely a defining strategy when you are treating multiple sclerosis naturally. So it's the thing you come back to when things get ugly. It's the thing that serves you forever and ever and ever. And you don't even waste your money on a supplement or bother taking a drug if your diet is not in line. It's going to be taking away from all of that. I use an analogy when we're talking about cleaning up a diet. I use the analogy of a bucket of muddy water. So when you've just been eating a standard North American diet, it's like throwing a handful of mud into a bucket of muddy water. You don't really notice anything, right? Your baseline is so low that nothing is remarkable. But as you start to clean up your diet, that it's like that water in that bucket is getting cleaner and cleaner. So you really notice when you throw a handful of mud in that cleaner water. And that's really what happens to you with diet as well. Why is food so complicated? Why is food such a chore for everybody? It's well, partly because of our conditioning. And in North America, my heritage is European, specifically German, and it's a country like Italy, like other countries, where they actually have laws around how food is produced. We don't have that here in North America. In fact, in our profit-driven society, it's all about how can I make this cheaper, and we pay the cost for that. Because really, think about eating. Think about putting food in your mouth. It's Colin Campbell from the China Crisis, if you haven't, or the China Study rather. If you haven't read that book, it's a good one to read. But he says eating is the most intimate experience we have. It's where something that we ingest becomes a part of us. So I often I love words, and so I think of these little quotes. But, going back to 600 AD, Hippocrates, who is, deemed to be the father of modern medicine, said, let medicine be thy food and food be thy medicine. So here we are coming full circle now, 2,000 years later, going, oh yeah, our food's been killing us, so we better clean it up. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We also have a big psychological component to eating in North America because we use food, and we use it in the weirdest ways. Like we use food as rewards. So, it drives me crazy to see a grandparents rewarding their grandkids with some kind of, poorer food choice. I have to watch my language because I really feel strongly about diet and nutrition. But, we use it as a reward. We use it to comfort us. It's like, okay, I feel miserable today. I deserve this, whatever this is, a tub of Haagen-Dazs or whatever. And just plain old addiction. Food addiction is rampant in our culture because of the nature of the quality of the food. So, for example, sugar, which is known to light up the same brain areas as cocaine does, is absolutely addictive. And, we replace other addictions with food. So we quit smoking, we start eating. We quit drinking, we start eating. And that's all just replacing that sugar, that sugar rush to the body. So we need to retrain our brain. We have to create new thoughts and new emotions and new beliefs around food and how it nourishes our body, and how I do this because I respect my body. I do this because I'm healing my body. I think we could talk all night about the psychology of eating. And I mean, there are people that's all they talk about, right? So another one that I love is we claim to be too busy to cook. I don't have time to sit down and eat, as if that were an option. And yes, I'm presenting that as not being an option because, well, I'm going to get into that later on in our conversation, but taking the time to be mindful and present when we eat is super, 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 super important. Okay, here's me jumping all over again. I know this is on the last page of my notes, but it fits so nicely in here. Our bodies don't digest in the stress response. So our autonomic nervous system is the two opposites. It's the stress response and it's the equal and opposite relaxation response. So the sympathetic nervous system over here and the parasympathetic nervous system over here. Digestion is a function of the parasympathetic nervous system, or the relaxation part of the autonomic nervous system. So if you are stressed, your digestion is shut down. So all the more reason to have a good ritual around how you eat, because it's not just what you eat, it's how you eat. Okay, I'm not going to go too far there because I've got other things to talk about. So because all of this craziness has become the norm, we've rationalized poor quality food. We want everything cheap. One of my favorite expressions all my adult life has been be very suspicious of cheap food. And I really mean that, and I really believe that, because that degradation of our food supply has led to epidemic IBS, epidemic inflammatory bowel disease, and by the way, epidemic autoimmunity, because it is the gut that is the interface that keeps that misdirected immune response that we were talking about last week under control. And if that's under control, remember, it can't play itself out in the brain and cause all the nasty symptoms. So what happens there is all this food causes something that's called a leaky gut. And give me a thumbs up if y'all know what leaky gut is and you've heard about leaky gut. Because that is that's from the erosion of the mucous membranes in the gut, from bad foods, from coffee, from booze, from chemotherapy, from nerves, from whatever. And what happens there is proteins is just a word for stuff in the gut. It could be toxins, it could be undigested food, it could be whatever, leak through that leaky gut back into circulation, into the rest of your body. And what it's met with on the other side is the immune response. And there's a great researcher by the name of Alessio Fasano. I may have actually talked about Dr. Fasano last time we talked. He's definitely one of my science crushes. I love him to pieces, and I'm going to post a picture of me with him. But you've got to check him out on YouTube because he's done all the research on how the gut causes autoimmunity. So we're going to talk about the microbiome next week because I've had so many requests about that. So I will bring Dr. Alessio Fasano into that. So bad food choices cause a leaky gut, blah, blah, blah. So what we know is the role of diet in managing multiple sclerosis is not new. Remember I talked about that therapeutic gap last time where, this is what our neurologists are practicing because that's what they learned when they went to school. And this is science marching on. Well, that's definitely happened with food and MS. And the first guy to actually do research in this field was Roy Swank, and he himself was a board certified neurologist, and his work was great, and it basically showed us that the saturated fats from animal tissue is very highly inflammatory, and he correlated that directly with how that played out for people with MS. Well, that's fantastic because that's something that has come full circle and is right in the middle of the spotlight nowadays with nutrition. What we've also come to understand now, though, that wasn't studied when Dr. Swank did his work, is that not only are you what you eat, that adage, you are what you eat, you are what your food eats. So those animals, he was testing commercially raised feedlot animals who are fed grain. So the saturated fats from those animals are high in omega-6 fats, which are the fats that are found in grains, which are, yes, wildly pro-inflammatory. What we know now since then is that the saturated fats from grass-fed and grass-finished animals, so animals that are only raised on grass, is much, much different. It's actually more omega-3 dominant, like the grass itself. So we've always got to be on the ball with this, right? Matt Embry, you may know Matt. Matt was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when he was 18. His father is a research scientist actually in geology, but he took all his wisdom of research to nutrition and MS, and together they put together something called the Best Bet diet from Ashton Embry. That diet is available for free online. So you can just Google Best Bet diet, Ashton Embry, and I like that diet a lot because it's very balanced. It's not heroic. It's not blow your mind kind of stuff. It's a good, solid, foundational diet. And now, of course, in the last 10 years, we have Dr. Wahls, Dr. Teri Wahls, and all the good work that she's doing. And once again, Teri is a researcher. She's a colleague of mine at the Institute for Functional Medicine. Oh, okay. I love this slide too. So I just thought this is the evolution of this standard American diet. So I want you to think of that fat guy at the end there as like a big ball of inflammation. But I also wanted to share this. This is Teri and I down in San Diego. We ran into one another in a Whole Foods store. So that's just my way of saying Dr. Wahls is great. So anyway, Dr. Wahls continues to do magnificent research. She herself was in a tilt recline wheelchair, incredibly dysfunctional. Thank you, Christopher. Was that you that put the link up there? There you go. You can all download the Best Bet cookbook now. And even if you're on your journey, it's always great to look at resources. But anyway, Dr. Wahls was in a tilt recline wheelchair, and she decided she wanted to get out of that wheelchair. And so she is an absolute testament to, she didn't even believe in nutrition and curing disease. She just...
she thought it was fringe.
Yeah, she thought it was fringe. That's what she said to us. She said, yeah, I thought it was like way out there. Well, guess what? Dr. Wahls changed her belief, and she's no longer in a tilt recline wheelchair. She walks around like crazy. Now she works hard at it. She still has to work really hard at it, but she did it. Okay, so she's developed the Wahls protocol. I love it. It's very heroic, though. It's a very heroic diet, and I'll be very honest with you, and I'm sure she's found this too in her research. I've worked with maybe not just as many, but some portion of the population that just blew their guts up with that diet. And, I ended up, spending like a year and a half trying to repair their guts after that. So I would caution to get into dietary change gradually if you're eating a standard American diet. Okay. The most important thing to know is there is no diet for you. Okay. A diet is just a guideline. It's something, it's a springboard. It's a first step. It's whatever. And your food and nutritional program or habits will be your own, and they will evolve and they will change. The common denominator, of course, is delivering high density nutrition. It's about healing the gut, because that's what food does. And remember what I just said about the gut. It's about reducing inflammation. It's about optimizing digestion, because we have zero bandwidth on this healing MS naturally trajectory for constipation. Zero. So if you're not having at least one, hopefully two, potentially three nice normal bowel movements a day, no blood, no mucus, then diet nutrition is the place to start for sure. So I put a post up this week, and you probably remember it. It had the brain, and it sort of had the one half of the brain was all not fruit and vegetables, food there. And it said having a diet and integrating good nutritional wisdom into your everyday eating are two very different things. And I don't want you to get hung up on the word diet. I want you to think about this as, a sub transformation. Remember what I said, it's like absolutely essential, and it's defining. So it's something that's going to evolve. It's not something you try once and either pass or fail. It's not something you do once and you're done. It goes on and on and on. So that's super important. But, I got some beautiful comments on that. And I just want to read them to you. And I really encourage you to go and keep track of your notifications when you get comments. Like, go and read them, because your friends and colleagues are just making great points out there. So Jadine says, I'm always explaining that I'm not on a diet. I'm just trying to make the best food choices for me, that when I don't make the best food choices, because I'm not perfect, I'm not cheating on my diet. I'm just doing one day at a time, and tomorrow is a new day to try again. Love it. Thank you, Jadine. And that's absolutely right. We come from this perfectionist culture that's like, oh, I blew it. And it's not about blowing it, because you can change with the very next bite, with the very next meal that you prepare. You can start to turn around whatever it was, whatever the side step was that makes you human. Fran agreed with that. And Michelle Doncaster added, yes, to remember to be kind to yourself, and to treat yourself. You need to balance taking care with also making sure it's not stressful or makes you unhappy in the process. So that's all about the beating yourself up, right? Remember, no shame, no blame, no guilt, right? That's where we are. If you do something that doesn't agree with some of the things that you've learned, then you just go take a nice deep breath and change with the very next bite. Michelle goes on to say, I had someone tell me, don't focus on what you can't eat. Focus on what you love to eat and bring more of that in. And I wholeheartedly agree. Don't focus on what you can't eat. That's not good for you. That's just torturing you. Explore with wide-eyed wonder, all the good stuff that you haven't maybe even learned yet, right? And Renee is totally agreeing with that, and also adds that it amazes me how our bodies react to the stuff we ingest. Even the good food may not be ideal at different times in our healing journey. And remember that bucket of muddy water, right? That's exactly the best analogy for that. So the big message there is be kind with yourself, be gentle with yourself, and know that this is a journey, right? This isn't a quick fix. If you've really gone crazy, has anybody ever done that besides me? Like, I don't even want to tell you what I did last weekend. But if you really go crazy and you feel it, your body is flipping you the bird because it didn't like what you just did. Here's the secret. Make a pot of soup. For me, soup is like the ultimate healing food, right? It's easy to digest. It's nutrient dense. And I'm not talking opening a can of Campbell's soup. I'm talking about making a good bone broth and adding vegetables. You can puree it if you want, but drink that until you feel better, honestly, because it's just easing and soothing your digestive system. So let's get down to a little bit more strategy. So here you go. Here's what I've been doing for the last 20 years in my clinic. And because of everything we've just talked about, all the different diets, all the different information that's out there, Freudian slip, all the inflammation that's out there, I start with a really fundamental anti-inflammatory diet. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And that's why I kind of like Matt and his Ashton's diet, because it's very, very, very similar. So what I do is introduce my second visit is all about nutrition. We look at how you're eating, and then I introduce the basic anti-inflammatory diet, and then if it's possible, I like to look at food sensitivities. And then ultimately, when we get there, I happen to like to tweak to the blood type diet. The blood type diet is eat right for your type. It's old now. It's been around forever, and that's what I love about it. It began as Dr. D'Adamo's anecdotal evidence, as they say, like 50 years of clinical observation. But then his son became a naturopath as well. And his son took that into the world of functional medicine and put all the studies behind it. So we know that different blood types thrive under different dietary conditions. So that's how and then after that, it's about listening to the body. And that listening to the body goes on for decades and decades. An elimination diet is still the best way to figure out your food sensitivities. It is time consuming, but it is really, truly the gold standard. And a colleague of mine at the Institute for Functional Medicine by the name of Tom Malterre, Malterre, he's written a book called The Elimination Diet, and I really like it. Like, it's a good old-fashioned elimination diet, and he does it well. And his wife is great in the kitchen, so all the recipes are like straight from her. So what is a basic anti-inflammatory diet? So first of all, it's avoidance, right? And it's avoidance of the top, what I call food toxins. You can also call them anti-nutrients. These are the foods that, we got busted with MS, but these food toxins aren't good for anybody else either. So when it comes to making a nutritional approach that meets your whole family's needs, they should all really be doing this too. And those top 3 food toxins, can you guess? I guess there's a 20-minute delay or 20-second delay, right? Okay, so I know I'm going to see it in the chat soon, but it is gluten. And I want you to think of gluten as more than just the glutinous grains, because there's no grains that are beneficial for trying to heal inflammation in the brain. David Perlmutter has written the book The Grain Brain. Sugar, you bet, Rivers, that's absolutely there. And Bernice, you guys are right on. What's the third one? Okay, we're going to talk about eggs in a minute, Joanne, but that is absolutely great. There's one more. Gluten, sugar, dairy. So casein. Casein, of course, is the alpha casein is the protein that's all the research is about now and how it damages the brain. But, for ages we've known that dairy blocks the vitamin D receptors, and we all know how important vitamin D receptors are for multiple sclerosis. The protein in cow's dairy is just so big that our digestive systems were never made to digest cow dairy. We are the only mammals that consume the milk of another mammal. So think about like a giraffe sucking on a cow. You don't see it in nature. It doesn't happen in nature. So I'm going to address the egg issue too, because it's definitely up there. And as an old traditional naturopath, we've always had our dirty dozen, which includes soy and dairy and okay, why am I blacking out on my eggs? Dirty dozen? Eggs. I'm trying to scoot around eggs, but eggs have always been on naturopathically on the dirty dozen. Teri Wahls avoids them in her protocol because she personally has an allergy to eggs, and they are a pro-inflammatory food. So if you're going, oh man, not eggs, do an elimination. Don't eat eggs for 3 weeks and then reintroduce them. And when I say reintroduce them, you want to flood your system with it. So that's what you do whenever you reintroduce a food. So the elimination diet is you do it one food at a time, stay off it for 3 weeks, then reintroduce, flood the system so you don't miss a reaction. What that means is 3 times a day for 3 days. If you're sensitive to those, you'll know in the first day if you have it 3 times a day. So Kathy's... what? It blocks vitamin D receptors. Yes. Kathy's also asking about goat milk. So here's the deal. Goat milk has all the same components. It has lactose. It has casein. We know that the molecules are smaller. We know people don't react to it the way they do to the cow molecule. But it hasn't been really researched. So once again, Kathy, that's something that I would say, do the elimination, like do a good clean 3 weeks of no dairy, and then, then flood your system with it. Okay. And see. I know myself, because I've done exactly that. I get a bit of a reaction to it, and a bit of a reaction is still causing that irritation in the gut, that erosion, that leaky gut, that misdirected immune response. So how much is too much? Well, a little bit is too much, but I have to admit, sometimes I have a little bit of goat cheese myself. So see how you respond. Linda, you're asking about coconut milk. Absolutely. Coconut milk is a plant-based milk, right? So it's a great substitute for cow's milk. Although I find the whole concept of adults drinking cow's milk horrific. It's one of those things that I look at and I go, oh, you know. So if you need to replace milk, coconut milk is a great one. Almond milk is a great one. I would stay away from any of the grain milks like oat milk but there's all kinds of different milks out there. Basically, soak some nuts overnight is best. Put a cup of nuts, if it's almond nuts or cashews or whatever, in your Vitamix. Put 3 cups of water in there or 4 cups of water, depending how creamy you want it. Blend it on super crazy high for a minute or two, and then strain it through a nut milk bag, and you've got your own beautiful homemade nut milk. Okay. Christopher's asking me a question here. When you do a 3-week elimination, then introduce a product like dairy, how long before you can introduce something else? Yeah. You know what, Christopher, I would wait another good couple of weeks before you do it again, or like another 3 weeks, right? That's why the elimination diet can be very tedious, because you do one at a time. So but that's, like I said, the gold standard, right?
Teri knows instantly. If you eliminate and reintroduce,
oh man, do I know instantly. And I don't know if that's a really good point. And Renee even mentioned it before. It can be different, foods can be different at different times, right? So I might eat something today and tolerate it fine, but tomorrow I'm stressed and it's cold out and I've got all these other life confounding factors, and I eat that same food and I have a big scary hairy reaction to it. So, and I see it right here, and I'm looking at myself, which is like not always fun, and I see big bags there, and I'm trying to think, what did I eat last night?
Sometimes it's the legs won't work then.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And
cold feet, different.
Yep.
Can't sleep.
Yep.
Like different things
Yep.
for different foods.
So food sensitivities can be behind headaches, they can be behind pain, they can be behind sleeplessness, fatigue, spasticity. So there's 5 good reasons to change your diet right there. Okay. There are food allergies. There are food intolerances and sensitivities. Food allergies we can measure, right? You take a prick of your blood, you send it to the lab, they test that against foods, and they see whether your blood creates an antibody. So that's a classic immune reaction. There's something, your immune system says, I don't recognize that, I've got to get rid of that. I create this antibody, which could be IgG or IgA, depending on the type of allergy, to fight that food, to eliminate that food from your system. That's a hardcore food allergy. And a food sensitivity doesn't elicit that immune response, but can cause grievous discomfort. So a food sensitivity or a food intolerance is something that we simply don't understand under the current medical model. So, and like I said, there can be all kinds of confounding factors around how you react to foods too. So, when I had my clinic, when I first started, I used an electrodermal screening, which is more in the realm of physics than it is in the current scientific model. So some people will say, oh, that's just crazy stuff. I love that test. That test gave me so much information about overall tolerance, the overall tolerance picture. And I also did the allergy testing. And I found that the allergy testing, it doesn't pick up the sensitivities, right? Because it's looking for that antibody reaction. But the sensitivity testing always picked up the things that came up on the allergy testing. So, and the allergy testing is always way more expensive. So now I just default to the electrodermal screening. Okay, so, and I want to make a point about sugar and fruit too. Because it's like, oh, fruit is natural, right? And I remember I had this girl, a lovely young lady, who was like in this crazy inflamed state, and we couldn't understand why we weren't yanking her out of that inflammatory state. And it turned out it was Ramadan, and all she was eating for Ramadan was fruit. And I'm talking sweet fruit, like bananas and mangoes and like the super high sugar fruit. So as soon as we got her off the fruit, we managed to get things under control. And I know you're going, what? Yeah, think about what Mother Nature does. Mother Nature provides us with a small amount of fruit for a very short window in the grand scheme of things. That is natural. What's not natural is going to the grocery store and buying bananas in February in Ontario. So that's not natural. And what I like to get people to stick to on an anti-inflammatory diet are the lower sugar fruits, and those are the dark berries. So blueberries, which by the way actually help heal your microbiome, full of antioxidants that reduce inflammation. Strawberries, okay, if they're organic, only if they're organic. Raspberries, blackberries, that kind of stuff, If you're on the East Coast and you're getting the beautiful marsh berries right now, beautiful stuff. So I know they're not as dark, but they're full of antioxidants and vitamins. So stick to the lower glycemic berries. Okay, my next point on my anti-inflammatory diet is just more veggies. So just more veggies. You can't possibly eat enough veggies, so just eat more. Wherever you are, just eat more vegetables. So I like to get people to start with 6 to 10 portions a day. A portion in my world is half a cup or a cup of leafy greens. So that's not a lot. That's not a lot of vegetables. And lightly steam them, make them easier to digest, especially when it's cold out. I know not everybody lives in Ontario, but it's starting to get cold here. So when the temperature gets cold, think about it. Digestion is a high energy, a high maintenance function. So if it's cold out there, we want to be giving that digestive function something warm. How did I get on that? That was totally a sidetrack, right? Oh, steaming, gently steaming, right? How do you get 6 to 10 portions of vegetables a day? Well, you can easy peasy get 2 in a smoothie in the morning. Easy peasy. Did you see those pictures that Teresa posted? Those are loaded with vegetables. I don't have a container on my desk right now, but usually I have something that's about 2 cups. So, and I just fill it with chopped vegetables in the morning. So whatever I can grab in the fridge. And then 2 or 3 with lunch, 2 or 3 with dinner, you're well on your way. And what does a healing dinner plate look like? I want you to think of color. I'm a very visual person, so when I plan a menu, it's all about the color. So if you've got 1/3, a quarter to a third of a good protein, or whether that's a meat or a fish, and then the rest of the plate is vegetables. So that could be, say you've got a piece of salmon on there. So here goes my color palette. We've got that beautiful salmon color. Then I would put cauliflower with that. Always something green. There's a rule. Always something green. So whether that is asparagus or broccoli or anything green, rapini, chard, Brussels sprouts, anything green. And then maybe a salad, maybe another steamed vegetable, whatever works for you, but lots of nice vegetables. And yes, by the way, it does take longer to eat vegetables because you actually have to chew them, right? A little thing that I like to encourage people to do, and it's just a little game that you can play with yourself, is, that didn't sound very good, did it? Strive to eat 50 different foods each week. I learned that from my good friend, Dr. Bill Code, and who is also has multiple sclerosis. He's a medical doctor out in BC. And I went to stay with them on their organic farm once, and they said, that's what we do. We do strive for 50 different foods a week. And you know what? It's not that hard, because think about it, right? You've got a salad. Your salad could have 8 things in it. So, and it just sort of, makes you think, oh, I've already had that twice this week. I'm going to have some of that. Or go into the grocery store and pick up something you've never eaten before and bring it home and figure out how to prepare that. We've got Google nowadays. It's wonderful for learning how to prepare stuff you have no idea about, right? I want to put a red flag here for on meat. And if you have a budget, I would put all of my budget, as much of my budget as possible, towards good quality meat. Because remember I said you are what your food eats. And I haven't bought meat out of a grocery store in decades. I was raised on a farm, and we slaughtered our own beef. We raised and slaughtered our own chickens. We had pheasants, we had ducks, we had geese. And so I didn't even eat meat out of a grocery store until I was like 27 years old, when I finally moved out of my parents' basement. And it's important. It's absolutely important.
Question a ways back, Adele. Adele is one of our top talkers here.
Oh, she's a talker.
She's super
I
active
love her.
in the groups. We love her.
Yeah.
She wants to know, how much meat should we eat? Like, is there a certain amount of that?
You know what? So this is another topic that's going to keep us here until midnight. But how much meat should we eat is a great question, because this is where my blood type stuff comes in for me, quite honestly, because different blood types have different digestive capabilities. So if you're a blood type O like I am, you are actually a quintessential vegetarian. You've got like a sluggish digestive system that actually needs to be nourished a little bit more. Now, having said that, and I'm sorry to my lovely and wonderful vegans out there, or vegetarian people, a vegetarian diet is a great intervention to get inflammation down, but it's not a good long-term solution, especially if you're using beans as your prime protein, because beans are still 3 carbs for every 1 protein. So when you're getting meat, you're getting direct protein that your body can use. And if you're eating the right meats, you're actually able to digest them and break them down into the amino acids. So Adele, I know I didn't answer your question, but it depends on how big you are. It depends on your digestive function. It depends on your blood type. But, you can also consume meat, quote unquote meat, in things like bone broth. So, for example, if you're a blood type A with a weaker digestive function, you can get the nourishment of animal proteins by consuming bone broth. So I hope I didn't sidestep that too much for you, Adele. Jaylyn, thank you for asking about nightshades. You must be reading my cheat sheet here. So the vegetables, these are under the umbrella of vegetables to avoid. And the vegetables to avoid are members of the nightshade family. And I specifically focus on 4, and that is potatoes, tomatoes, eggplants, and peppers. And yes, potatoes, white potatoes, not sweet potatoes. Yes, peppers, that includes hot sauce. Sorry, y'all, who like all that spicy stuff. tomatoes have just always been there. Tomatoes, and I'll tell you, in 20 years of sensitivity testing, interestingly, tomatoes are culturally we're wildly sensitive to tomatoes, and I think it's because tomatoes are just in everywhere. I mean, the best way to create a food sensitivity is to overconsume it, right? So what do? You know what? I didn't prepare the biochemistry of it, but it produces a cyanide-like reaction in the body that is pro-inflammatory. And go ahead, eat potatoes, nothing but potatoes, 3 times a day for 3 days, and see how your pain flares, and see how your joints feel, and see how that inflammation. That's what keeps me honest with potatoes. I'm an old farm girl. I just love my potatoes, but they don't love me. So that's what keeps me honest. Okay. I've been asked about intermittent fasting. It's a concept that's thousands of years old. So it's on trend right now, right? And like I said, over 20 years, I've seen trends come and go, and some of them are great and some of them are horrible, or some of them just get all chewed up in crazy, like the keto diet, right? A good keto diet can heal, and a bacon and cheese keto diet will kill you, you know. But intermittent fasting is simply a way of giving your body a break. So the digestive system is it takes a lot of energy, man. And food irritates it. And if you've already got an irritated gut, then food is just going to continue to irritate that. So caloric restriction takes the load off the gut, right? It happened naturally thousands of years ago because people didn't always have food. So that's how they managed caloric restrictions. They could go 1 or 2 days without food just because they didn't have it, not because they were on some fancy pants intermittent fasting program. So what that is having a window where you eat, so a window where you feast, and a window where you fast, where you don't eat, okay? And I'll tell you how this relates to us, people who are living with multiple sclerosis, okay? So first of all, I think the Western culture, they were the ones that created the bedtime snack. It was never a good idea. It was probably some kind of marketing, but simply stopping to eat after dinner, not having a bedtime snack, not eating after dinner. That's an easy way. And then counting out, a good 16-hour fast is ideal, but not for everybody, and I'm going to get into that. So even if you just don't eat anything after dinner and give yourself a good 12 hours. That's right, Christopher. Breakfast is breaking the fast, right? I've actually talked to people who get up in the middle of the night and make themselves a sandwich. Like at 2 a.m. It's like, oh my God, So while 16 hours is considered a good intermittent fasting window, you can also do, once a week, a 24-hour window. And I did that for years. I just didn't eat on Mondays. I had lots of water. I would have what we now call bone broth, clear soup, and juice, like not with any sugar in it, green juice, like pure green juice. But the big thing is that it is a stressor on the body. So if you have any kind of hormonal imbalance, for example, a thyroid dysfunction or adrenal fatigue, or if you're perimenopausal, where your hormones are just kind of, doing a juggling act, that's probably not the best solution for you. You can still do the 12 hours, like don't eat anything after dinner until breakfast the next morning, but it might just be too much of a burden on your hormonal system to go be doing like longer fasts. Okay, let's jump to the diabetes. What are the benefits of intermittent fasting? Well, the first one is correcting or reversing insulin sensitivity, and therefore is an excellent choice for people who are diabetic. It reduces inflammation. It allows the body to clear up cellular debris through a process called autophagy. It reduces seizures. It's been used for decades and decades to reduce seizure activity. So it just, like I said, it just gives the body a break. It dials back the inflammation. It lets things calm down. If fatigue is an issue for you, I do not recommend intermittent fasting. So I would wait until you've got your food and nutrition to a point that your fatigue is less and more manageable, and then you can consider doing the intermittent fasting. But it's an excellent way to manage blood sugar. Okay, so all of that, right? All of that about what to eat and when to eat. But it's not always about that, is it? It's about how to eat too. And this is where we get into the psychology of eating. And honestly, we can't underestimate this because, I don't know if we got into, we did, I think, right? Our beliefs create our thoughts create our emotions, and our emotions create our actions, right? And our reality. So, if you were rewarded with Smarties, every day when you were a kid, you might think that that is good and I deserve Smarties and, that's yay me. Or this Haagen-Dazs ice cream is comforting because that's what my mom did. So whenever my mom got sad, she would curl up on the sofa with a tub of ice cream, and that's what we know. And those are the things that form our beliefs, that form our thoughts, that form our emotions, that form our actions. So, this is really about making those beliefs your own, not your inherited beliefs, which we all have. That's how everything starts, right? So, and that's when stuff gets easier to do, because some people, it just, I have a normal nutritional talk with people, and for me, I think, oh my God, I must be boring this person to death because this is also yesterday's news. And we finish the conversation and they say to me, wow, you just blew my world apart. And that's not my intention to blow people's worlds apart. And I forget sometimes that where I am today was not where I was 20 years ago. And, in the day when I thought an Eat More bar and a peach Snapple was a great lunch, So the emotional aspects of eating and creating your own belief system and creating patterns about how your family eats. Nothing that we've talked about is going to harm your family. So, cooking a separate meal over here for you, once again, that's not the great beliefs that create, the thoughts and the emotions. And because emotion is ultimately what does drive how we eat, and whether we're angry, whether we're happy, whether we're sad. And the funny thing is, it's like a feedback loop, right? Because if we make bad decisions about foods in the moment, feeding an emotion from a belief that wasn't really ours, then it just keeps us in that loop, right? Whereas if we can, understand the connection between food and mood, we understand that we can actually get ourselves out of those beliefs and out of sadness, depression, anxiety with the foods that we choose to eat. So, take a moment and spend some time with that and summarize your life and the lessons that you learned about food and what food meant to you. In my family, my mom was one of those awesome 1960s and 70s domestic engineers, and we had the huge vegetable garden, and we raised our own animals, and my mom cooked everything from scratch all the time. And that's I love cooking and I love food. And I talk to people who never knew that because they were so busy and their parents were so busy that they didn't ever sit down I know people that have never sat down at a dining room table. And that's part of the conscious connection with food, right? Is actually taking the time to sit down and, dare I say, give thanks. And I don't really care who you thank. You can thank God, you can thank Mother Nature, you can thank the universe, you can thank the farmer, you can thank whoever it is that cooked it for you, or you can simply stop and close your eyes and say thank you, thank you, thank you, and not direct it to anybody. And in so doing, you're actually directing it to everybody, but taking that time to eat more consciously, to say, okay, today I'm going to do something different. I'm going to learn how to make Brussels sprouts that I actually like. What is your relationship with food, and how does that reflect in your life? Is that a product of the beliefs that you got as a child? Busy, 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 don't have time to eat, not important to eat. How can food become a conduit for your personal growth? And this is where we get back to, this is your transformation, right? This letter is for you to write. It doesn't need to be about restriction and deprivation. I don't ever want you to think about restriction and deprivation. If you feel that way, explore that feeling. Why do I feel deprived by a food that I know is triggering my addiction centers or causing inflammation in my body? Check in with that and see what that's about. And even more simple than that, what foods give you energy, and what foods kick your feet out from underneath you, literally. Identify that problem and find an alternative. This is my plea to you, to be a flexitarian. There you go. There's an on-trend word. Be flexible with your diet and understand that even if you are a vegetarian, maybe you do need to add some bone broth into your diet. Maybe you do need to look at other sources for protein other than beans. You need to figure that out. So, but these are the first steps that you need to do today, the ones that we've talked about today. And if you want to get deeper into food and nutrition, I'm all over that. But let me know exactly how I can help you, because I want to do that. And next week, I did at the beginning, but next week I want to remind you that we're going to talk about the microbiome and actually have some strategies to start healing that up, because if you haven't gotten it yet, the gut is like the most important thing. So we'll talk about digestion and we'll talk about healing the microbiome all next week. Okay. Are there any outstanding questions that I need to know? There were lots of questions about sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are fine. It depends on your carb limit. So probably not fine if you're doing a good keto diet, but on a paleo diet, they're magic. Nadine, I bet your gut needs healing, darling. All of ours do,
Coffee?
Coffee. Somebody asked about coffee?
Coffee. What about decaf coffee?
Okay, so coffee is, so I have always said I don't begrudge anybody 1 cup, and I mean a cup, not a jumbo java, of black organic coffee a day. And that depends also on your sensitivity. So sensitivity to caffeine mostly, but coffee is probably one of the most toxic crops out there because it's so heavily sprayed. It's a drug that the world is addicted to, and so they can't afford to have a crop fail, and therefore it's heavily sprayed. When we were in Costa Rica 10 years ago, I was horrified to learn of a new harvesting technique they did. Instead of having Juan Valdez, like the commercials, picking the coffee beans, they were actually spraying them with another chemical that allowed the beans to drop off the bush, and they could suction them up with a great big vacuum cleaner. So It's all
Decaffeinated coffee.
and oh, sorry, am I ranting?
No,
And decaffeinated coffee. Yeah, decaffeinated coffee. Most like the normal decaffeination process is done with solvents, so chemicals. So there is a Swiss water filter process that does not use chemicals. So if you're looking for a decaf, look for a Swiss water filter. Is this protein okay? Rivers is asking with a link to the bulk barn. Yikes! Bulk barn just scared me. But I see it's a pea protein. I don't have time to click over there. But pea protein is okay. It's an okay protein. Hemp protein is a good protein. Oh, hemp hearts. Shout out for hemp hearts. Hemp hearts are like nature's little magic nutritional bomb. They're protein, fiber, fat. 1 tablespoon is 5 grams of totally usable protein, and good fat and good fiber. Before it pops off the screen, Linda, you were asking about oatmeal. Oatmeal is a grain. You can get gluten-free oats. The issue with oats is generally cross-contamination because they're processed in the same plants as wheat are. But now we know that, since Grain Brain, we know all the research that's coming in about grains in the brain. So I would recommend against oatmeal in favor of something like chia pudding. Chia is another powerhouse. It's a superfood. It's high protein, high fiber, good fats. It's a little seed. It absorbs 7 times its weight in water. And you can do all kinds of fun stuff with it. Well, oils are important, right? So, but we want good oils. So my favorite for cooking is avocado oil. Sorry, I see my face is turning red like I'm going to blow up, but that's because I'm choking to death. Yes, Nancy, you can watch the video again. So avocado oil has a high heat point, so you can actually fry with it. If you're just adding oil, like I add a drizzle of oil on everything. So steamed broccoli on my plate, drizzle of olive oil on it. Anything, I put a drizzle of olive oil in it. I put clug olive oil in my smoothie in the morning. So that's one that you can eat raw, so to speak. You don't want to really, heat it, superheat it. Okay, love the little hemp hearts. I eat hemp seeds daily. Yay, yay, yay. Organic coffee beans, great. Wendy's just saying coffee. And there's Caroline. Thanks, Caroline, for sharing. Oats make me so sluggish. I am with you, girl. They are just like, honest, a sleeping pill for me, and I don't want to know, what's going on to cause that. Veronica's asking about flax seeds. Flax seeds are great, especially, well, I was going to say especially if you're female, but of course, men suffer from the phytoestrogenic dilemma of today too. They're great soluble and insoluble fiber. They are a prebiotic food, so they start to populate the gut really nicely. And they are phytoestrogenic, which means they bind estrogen receptors so that xenoestrogens, or the super powerful estrogens from the environment, can't bind and irritate our cells. Kathy, I eat oatmeal every morning. Sorry to hear that, Kathy. And Janet, goodness me, said chia seed is something I must be careful of being diabetic. I don't know. I know Janet really well. And I don't know about that. That's very interesting. That's all I can say about that. I would Google that and see is chia seed contraindicated for diabetics, because for years I have got my diabetics to do something that I call chia and cinnamon. So a tablespoon of chia seeds and a teaspoon of cinnamon in water or almond milk, and pop that back to help regulate blood sugar. Gluten-free oats with blueberries makes me full for hours. Sure, is that full or is that bloating, Joanne? right? So you can do chia pudding with blueberries too and get a lot more nutritional value for that. Okay, I don't know if I've missed anything that's scrolled up, but I love you guys. You have got lots of great energy, lots of great questions. Hold on, Veronica's saying something here. Switch to chicory replacement for coffee. Yeah, I know. I've had. I mean, I haven't had a coffee since 1982 because I was so sensitive to caffeine that, and I was a server in a cocktail. I was a cocktail waitress, and it was like, the jitters. But I've tried some of that stuff since, and there's some nice replacements out there that are grain free. Thank you, Joanne. Not bloated, but content. Very good. Okay. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Gay. And we will see you next week. And so I want you to think about all your digestion questions, all your microbiome questions. Okay.
I have to drag her away.
Good night. And I'll be on. I'm on a conference the next 2 days, but I will be on this weekend for sure, commenting on the group. So have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.